If you're familiar with anti-Xeno combat, you probably know about the Mechachieftain. Most capable doesn't necessarily mean most fun, however, and generally speaking, it's fun to do off-meta things every now and then, if not all the time. This video is a compilation of my 10 favorite off-meta builds, noting it is entirely based on personal preferences, and whichever ship you fly is up to you, as always, and other ships are entirely fun. Not saying these are the best or anything, they're just the ones that I like to fly. Also note, these are off-meta builds, so they're kind of crazy, and they're not beginner-friendly. If you're looking for a beginner-friendly build, please refer to the AX Academy video and the AX Meta Chieftain, which is by far the best ship to learn in, and the easiest and most capable ship for solo interceptor combat. I've classified these builds based on the toughest interceptor variant that they are realistically able to solo. They range from Basilisk capable, through Medusa capable, through Hydra capable, and finally, there's an anything capable category, which are ships that can practically do anything that can be done in AX, such as multi-Goid interceptor instances, such as dropping in a high prediction, and since there's not enough interceptors there, dropping meta alloys, summoning more, and then killing them all, such as taking on 8 Hydras at a single time by yourself, and all these kind of crazy things that can be done at the very top end of AX combat. So without further ado, let's get started. At number 10, we find the Humble Hauler. The Hauler, which I call the Bullet Ant build, stings quite hard for its size, and flies incredibly well considering its size, speed, acceleration, and overall handling characteristics. The more common build for the AX Hauler uses a single small Gauss cannon, and 3 of those have shown to be able to take down a Fargoid Hydra even, in a concerted swarm effort. However, the build I use, or at least I'm talking about in this context of these crazy builds recommendations, is a small hauler that uses a small modified plasma charger. It flies different from the Gauss hauler because it actually requires 4 pips in weapon capacitor, which the Gauss hauler does not need, so it's somewhat less agile than that hauler, but it's still remarkably agile for its size, and using such a small ship with a charging and firing plasma charger against basilisks and cyclops is a lot of fun. Something to try. And remember, the hauler has the best weapon convergence in the game. The plasma charger hauler is very capable of taking down a cyclops solo. With a lot of effort, it is able to take down a basilisk as well. While it's theoretically possible for it to take down a Medusa, the flight characteristics and timing required are prohibitive, which in practice means that this is a basilisk capable class ship. Now moving on to Medusa capable ships, number 9 we find the humble starter ship, the Sidewinder. The crazy Sidewinder AX build I uses a weapon focused with cluster capacitors power distributor, which allows you to fire 2 small Guardian Gauss cannons without staggering, which is a great quality of life improvement, while flying with pips configured as 1 for system, 2 for engine, and 3 for weapons on a single heatsink, which makes the ship very fast and very agile. Although you may have seen my video of me taking down a Fargoid Hydra with it, that was only possible in Legacy with a Hammer Gauss ammo damage bug. In practice, without abusing that bug, this is a Medusa class capable ship, and doing a Sidewinder versus Medusa fight is a lot of fun, and actually it's not as intimidating as it may sound at first once you get a little bit of a hang of it. Also in the Medusa class, you'll find the TitanKiller Krait Mk2 build, which is a build that's specifically designed for fighting in the Maelstrom environment, as in Titan space, in and around Fargoid Titans, as it doesn't have any Guardian modules whatsoever, as those cannot be used in Maelstrom systems, as they degrade based on the permanent field that exists in such environments. However, the TitanKiller in and of itself is quite a capable solo fighter, and it's able to take down up to a Fargoid Medusa all by itself, furthermore without using heatsinks whatsoever, as its single gimbaled medium thermal vent beam laser is able to keep it cool while firing its multi-cannons. Fighting a Medusa solo in a TitanKiller is kind of crazy, as it's just fundamentally different than typical and traditional AX combat. You don't use heatsinks, as you rely on TV beams, to stay cool, but at the same time you have a very, very long exert orbiting time, as the multi-cannons themselves don't do a lot of damage, so you'll be firing at that target for an extended period of time. And once you do get an exert, you can use sub-targeting of the hearts to have your multi-cannon snap to the heart more or less automatically and take it out very, very quickly. So kind of crazy, very different style of fighting from traditional AX combat. Now onto Hydra class capable ships. At the very bottom of that range, and maybe the craziest of the Hydra capable builds, you'll find the Eagle Mk2. The Eagle Mk2 is the smallest ship to have ever soloed a Fargoid Hydra, and even to be able to do so required probably my largest and most concerted effort in AX combat ever. The ship has a single utility, which means you can only carry up to 5 heatsinks at a time, and if you want to make more, you have to combat synthesize them while firing at the interceptor without getting hit, as getting hit by the swarm or anything really will interrupt your synthesis. And when your synthesis gets interrupted more than once in a cycle, you die. That's simple. That being said, the Eagle is the most agile ship in the game. It is the one that probably has the best flight characteristics overall, rivaling the Viper Mk3 that has better acceleration but not quite as much agility and turn rate. So it makes for an incredibly fun ship to fly, and if you spare yourself the madness of fighting a Hydra in it and stick to basilisks and medusas, you'll find that it can be an incredibly fun ship to fly, and a quite capable ship in its own despite its size. Past the Eagle, another provenly Hydra capable build, and what I consider the best training ship, and probably the craziest build that I've ever envisioned, is the E-rated Chieftain. The E-rated Chieftain entails taking a Chieftain out of Shindes, or whatever station you may want to buy it at, and filling it with the worst possible version of any given module, which generally entails the E-rated version of modules that have a choice. So E-rated thrusters, E-rated sensors, E-rated module reinforcement packages, E-rated everything. And then going and trying to fight something with it. Obviously, it is a truly terrible ship. And that's kind of the point. The ship will not carry you. You have to fight it to make it do what you want it to do. And you have to go all out to make it orbit and maneuver it and engage in combat in ways that other ships just seamlessly do for you. The positive is that it's dirt cheap to assemble and rebuy, takes no engineering whatsoever, and it's dirt cheap in and of itself. I like to say that once you've mastered fighting in the E-rated Chieftain, you can pretty much fly any ship in any configuration whatsoever and get a handle of it. There's really very little worse than the E-rated Chieftain, and consequently, it's probably the best ship to learn and train in. And number 5, and we've mentioned the characteristics of a Viper earlier when we were talking about the Eagle, we'll find the hollow Viper Mk3. Now, the whole point about the Viper Mk3 is that it handles so well, and it is so fast. Not only is it so fast, but it's got the best acceleration in the game, and particularly the best forward acceleration in the game. To make the most of this ship, why not just drop all internal modules and make it as light as possible while retaining 1 medium, 2 small, Gauss cannons, and flak? And the resulting hollow Viper has been able to take down a Hydra relatively easily and just flies amazing. It's not for the faint of heart, considering it is basically a paper hull ship, but it is incredibly fun to fly, and definitely belongs on this crazy ships list. Number 4 has a build that is designed for entirely different purposes, and call this Oreo Snacker, and it's meant to hunt down Fargoid Orthros interceptors that we colloquially and friendly refer to as Oreos. It's a Cytoplasma Anaconda, as in it's an Anaconda that has 6 modified plasma charges and 2 Cyto Scramblers, and fights in a bi-weave configuration with AFMUs and a lot of very special things that are meant specifically for Spire sites hunting. It is able to fight in a solo configuration, even a Hydra. However, it's really not designed for that. It's meant for Spire site usage, and it is a lot of fun at Spire sites, as it can delete Orphuses in practically no time. And if you're bringing 2 or 3 of these at a Spire site, the resulting fireworks are truly amazing. So a bit of a kind of crazy, very specialized build, and something to try if you care to. Now, the top 3 builds on this list I've classed as anything capable. They're not that crazy. They're actually very good builds, but they do vary from established wisdom in some shape, form, or some other reason that I will describe. At number 3, we have the Cytochally. Cytochally is an Alliance challenger with 3 medium Gauss cannons mounted on its nose hardpoints, just underneath the cockpit, and 2 Cyto Scramblers and 2 Thermovent beam lasers. The Cytochally is an incredible wing fighter. It performs exceptionally well in anti-Xeno combat zones, owing to the fact that it's capable of taking down shields both at long range with its beams, and especially at short range with its combination of Cyto Scramblers and beams, while at the same time having quite the kick in terms of firepower with its 3 medium Gauss cannons that have, short of a hauler that I mentioned earlier, the best convergence in the game. It is incredibly effective to snipe with a challenger, as at 1,500 meters, which is the typical sniping distance, you have pinpoint accuracy, and you can land all those 3 shots on the very small target box of a heart with more ease than pretty much any other ship. The handling characteristics of the Chally are also extremely good. Although it's somewhat slower than the Chief, it's still very agile, a lot more agile than the Krait and many other mediums, and as a result, it strikes a really good balance of firepower and agility. While the Cytochally truly is anything capable, it is most exclusively suited for wing combat and fighting in a group. At number 2, you find the so-called Mechachief, which is different from the Meta-Chief in that it's Mechans, as in mine, modified version of the very famous and exceptionally effective meta build. My personal variation of the meta build hinges on making a few modifications that suit and cater to my personal flight and fight style, and again, is not a beginner-friendly option. I will repeat one more time. The Mechachief is fantastic, and it is the best option for starting out. If you're new to AX, go with that one. Do not follow my design choices, although you may want to understand them just out of curiosity. My personal version of the Mechachieftain modifies it to make it lighter and faster and more agile as a result, sacrificing hull in the process, as I will generally prefer agility and speed and the ability to avoid damage versus excessive amounts of buffer to tank the damage, which I feel are unnecessary. Once you have the skill, you want the agility, you'll take the velocity, speed, acceleration, agility of a lighter ship over tankiness of a heavier, slower one. I also personally like ships that have good convergence and the ability to sustain all the weapons that they get on board. Now, as it so happens, the Mechachief is slightly overdrawn in terms of distributor capacity with its 2 medium and 2 small Gauss cannons. For beginners, that doesn't matter very much, as you will not be firing at the rate where that matters. But for me, it does. If I fire at a maximum fire rate on the Mechachieftain, I will draw down on my distributor, which means my heat will spike, which means bad things will happen. As a result, I have downsized the weapon configuration and have switched to a 1 medium and 3 small Gauss cannons on the Mechachief. And that has given me 1 more medium slot, which I've decided to put a second flak in. A lot of the most experienced pilots laugh at me for that choice, as they all say, flakless is the way to go, flak is useless, once you know what you're doing, you can cut the swarm, which is true, but I like actually using flak. I find it's a lot of fun to use. I find it also makes solo fights a lot easier and accessible, and 2 flak cannons work exceptionally well in tandem in deleting swarms. As a result, my Mechachief has 2 flak cannons. It's a very personal choice. They're arguably better choices if you want to go for effectiveness of a ship overall. I personally like it, and my crazy Mechachief version of a Mechachief has 2 flak cannons, and that's what it is. And at number 1, at the very top of the crazy builds list, you'll find the Krait Mk2 with 4 modified Guardian Shard cannons and 1 large thermal van beam laser. This MurderKrait is just currently the best AX ship in the game, bar none. It is a lot harder to use than the Chieftain, which is why we do not recommend it, and which is why the Chieftain remains the overarching meta still, especially for beginners. But in capable hands, once you get the hang of advanced techniques like boost orbiting, the Krait performs like really no other ship in the game. The ship overall hits hard. It's got a class 7 power distributor, which is very uncommon on medium ships. At the same time, it has an oversized power plant, which allows it to run a low emissions thermal spread plant in most configurations, which lets it stay very cool, which is a desirable trait in AX combat as a general rule. Furthermore, it's reasonably agile. It doesn't really yaw, which is kind of its major downside, and it does require boost orbiting to sustain an orbit with interceptors. But once you get the hang of that, it handles reasonably well. This shard-based MurderKrait is crazy hard to use, but it's also crazy good. So those are my top 10 crazy AX build currently. Again, this is a video about personal opinions. I am not arguing that these builds are good or anything, except maybe the last one. The last one is really good. But besides that, I'm not saying that this is what you should fly or that it's superior to anything else. I am just articulating what are my personal preference and what I've been finding fun to fly, where and why and how. Hopefully you find this video to be interesting. If you have, please don't forget to like and subscribe, as it encourages and helps support me in making more of these videos. With that, wing up and strike, and glory to mankind, Commanders.